As the drums of war resonate, the coalition stands resolute and prepared. The impending conflict is met head-on with bravery and determination, as they are ready to fiercely defend their borders. In the face of uncertainty, the Federal Coalition of Sol stands as a beacon of strength against the coming fires of war. Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and I've been asked to review the Remnant Chronicles, a new science fiction tabletop skirmish game from RevWorks Minis. Set in the aftermath of the Pact, the provincial administration of colonial territories, it follows the conflicts that arose when the various factions of humanity that spread out into the stars were split apart and set at odds with each other. I have been sent the digital rulebook and some STLs for the Federal Coalition of Sol Infantry, but no money has changed hands. This will be an overview and not an advert. As I haven't painted a lot of models in the last few weeks, I really want to get stuck into those STLs first, and later on I'll talk about the game itself. If we look at the RevWorks Minis website, we can see the various minis that have already been released for the first factions, including the Coalition. The Raven light vehicle is really cool and scratches my armoured car itch quite nicely. The rigs, mecha suits are pretty cool too. I was sent the Coalition Fire Team, including the core infantry for the faction. Currently these will be available as physical prints, but over time RevWorks is releasing all of the options as both physical and digital versions. Currently the physical prints are shipped from the USA, but they are working on an official print tech in Europe and some other places as well. So here's the full set of parts in the set as sculpted by Divic Designs, who has appeared on my channel a few times before. And I really appreciate Divic's influence, especially with the set being multi-part. I can make a separate video ranting about how multi-part kits are better for printing, because they're easier to customize, and if you get a failed print, you only need to reprint pieces, not the whole thing. It's a whole discussion that I'll have another time. There are also the Cal war droids, which are supplied multi-part and monolithic, and there are 4 different versions, although in the game you'll use one of these with each fire team. And so there's plenty of options to have a variety to make each fire team look different. And there's even a special character here called Relentless. I quite like the style of these droids. They have features that match the kit the infantry are wearing, sharing the design aesthetic. Like I said, I want to get to painting, and for these science fiction soldiers, I wanted to paint an urban camouflage for the uniform, something I haven't done before, and so I started with a light blue. Might seem quite bright at the moment, but stick with me, it'll all make sense soon. For the camo, I flecked on some light grey spots. My first one I used 2 shades of grey and white, but they all kind of came together very closely, and so for the rest of them I just used the light grey. And I'm going to try a little trick that I've been working on. There's a meme in the mini painting hobby that I've always opposed about always painting exactly 2 thin coats on everything all the time, no exceptions. And that's fine for learning the basics, but you quickly need to find out that you should be painting the number of thin coats that gets you the effect that you want. And that might be 2, or it might be 5, or it might be 1. But who says those coats have to be the same paints? I just happen to have 2 black paints, a very strong dark black and a charcoal. So if I start by painting the edges of all of the armour with the darkest black as a single coat, and then as a second coat, a single coat of the charcoal over the whole armour panel, I end up with a very strong defining black edge to all of the armour pieces where it has 2 coats, and a slightly lighter black in the middle where it has just 1. And this is quite subtle, as even the charcoal paint that I have coats quite well in just a single coat, but it is visible and it helps to emphasise those shapes. I would usually use a brown wash on infantry, keeping black washes for mechanical things, but in this case the blue is very bright and it needs to be brought down quite a lot. And blue is a cold colour, and that will suit the black wash well enough. You might notice that I left the rifles with the grey primer before the wash, and now I'll just add a little bit of silver metallic to the top. This is an incredibly simple way of having a quite well-defined metallic effect when model parts have a lot of fine details. A suitable base coat, grey primer for me, a wash to darken the recesses, and just a little metallic. I'm using a bright silver to make the highest edges nice and shiny. I also have to do some real work on the rest of the model. With the base coat and the wash doing a lot of the core work, but being a little messy, some highlighting really brings back all of the detail of the sculpt, as well as emphasising the character of the piece. And what I want to emphasise the most on these models is the armour, as that is the stylish parts of the set that I really like. The leg panels have knee joints, straps around the boot. They look almost like exosuit pieces, and that is a style that I've always been a fan of. And, of course, I also gave a slightly more subtle highlight to all of the blue pieces on the model. Now I can move on to the Cal War Droids, and these are seriously cool models, and a style I've not painted before. And that got me a thinking. Back in the day, and I'm old so I get to use that expression, there was a bit of a meme that you could paint a whole army of robots with a silver spray paint and then a watered down black paint, this is before washes were commonly used, and then you'd just about be done. Now I've never done this before, and even though we've come a long way since that meme style paint job, I just thought this would be a fun model to try it out on so that I can say I've done it at least once. To make sure there was at least a little bit of variety, I based the ammo feed in gold and the armour with the same blue I used on the trooper's uniform, as that would tie them together thematically. And the wash, oh the wash, it wasn't happy going down on the silver spray paint, as that had a glossy finish. But I make my own washes, and so I can adjust them. By adding a little more medium to make them stickier, as it were, I managed to get the right consistency so that it would behave how I wanted. And once it was dry, I really only had to do the tiniest bit of cleanup to the silver, and then highlight the blue, and the first one was done. After that I realised there's a way around the glossy silver paint, and that's by adding matte paint over the top of the silver first. It changes the finish, and it will grab the wash without having to adjust it. And so I set about making a rusty version of the mean paint job. And this isn't even that hard to do. All I did was stipple on some dark brown, some black, and some lighter orange. And then went through all of the same steps as before, although I did do a bit more cleanup with the silver to make it look like it was just a little bit dirty and not something that's been left in a lake for 50 years. And you know what? That looks good too. Well, I've had my fun with the mean paint job. For the next one, I want to see if I can match the layout of colours that I gave the infantry. And so most of this droid will get blue, and the armour panels will get that edged black effect. However, even before I was finished with this one, I realised I didn't like this colour layout. Having the bodywork be blue, for me, doesn't really suit it. And so I finished it off quickly. The last of the Cal War Droids is the special character Relentless. In theory, I've learned all I need to know on the last three to make this one look the best, right? Well, painting the black bodywork this time didn't quite go as well as on the black armour of the infantry. I wasn't quite able to get the same level of definition with the deep panel line and midpoint highlight. The blue did come out quite well, and I decided to have fun with the different face as it has an eye lens, and I painted that with red, orange, and then some yellow specular highlights. So there are the 4 Cal War Droids from the set complete. I took some quick pictures to help decide which of them look the best with the infantry models, as the Coalition Fire team only has one at a time. You lot at home, let me know which one you would pick, but for me, I chose, strangely, the first one, that meme paint job. Because as much as it's a bit of fun to create that old meme, it actually surprisingly does work really well on this model. The smaller details grab the wash and have that panel line effect, and the slight bits of pooling look like oil stains on an otherwise clean and well maintained machine. So now that I've had my fun painting these really cool models, I read through the rulebook and realised there's some very interesting stuff there as well. So let's play a sample turn, and please forgive the proxy models for my opponents. I only have one squad for the game so far. During the turn you alternate between your squads and your opponents, and that's normal as an alternating activation that quite a few wargames use. However, within each of your squads you move each model individually. I'll start by moving my squad leader here, who has 3 actions, so I can move once and shoot twice. I shoot with my combat stat of 3 for 3 dice, and any 6+ is considered a success. As the Sergeant's Carbine is full auto, I can make a rate of fire attack to get a bonus success at the cost of a low ammo token, and that is pretty good rolling. The defending model rolls their defense of 2 and doesn't roll that well. I can compare the Carbine's damage, plus all the successes from my dice, versus the target's armour and all of their successes, meaning some of the damage goes through. As I play out the rest of the squad's turn in the background here, you can see that positioning of individual models becomes a lot more relevant than in most battle wargames where, oh, some of the squad's in cover, therefore they all are. But you actually get even better tactical coherency that isn't always present in skirmish wargames. Add to that the wide range of unit equipment and skill options and all of the rest of the stuff in the rules, I think this could really lean towards some elaborate narrative campaigns. Speaking of story, there is an extensive history of the setting in the middle section of the rulebook. And it's not just the abbreviated half paragraph that I'm about to give, but includes interconnected policies, warfare, and a brief guide of some of the colloquialisms of the various cultures involved. The short version of the history is after humans developed FTL drives and founded colonies on nearby worlds, the Pact, the provincial administration of colonial territories, was really fond of being in control of everything. And that wasn't entirely popular, as you might imagine. And then, the technological issues that scuppered all of the FTL systems, and the ability to transit between worlds, and all of the various colonies started to fracture. After a whole lot of stuff, the Coalition of Sol became dominant on Earth, and then started to expand their influence outwards, warring where it could, and attempting to reunify the scattered colonies. It's tough going, and a lot of fighting is still to be done. I will mention that whilst I was talking to the creator as I made this video, I wrote a little bit of my own story to go with the models that I painted. And they took my story, edited it slightly to fit, and has now been made a page in the rulebook. So you'll be able to see all of my models and read about the siege of Yatade Mill. As much as I'd like to discuss the setting, the game, and the models for the rest of the day, I do have to wrap up the video at some point. I wish I had had the opportunity to actually properly play this game, because there are some really interesting points at the fundamental kind of core of how the game is played. And so the only conclusion I can give at the moment is that the rules seem really nicely put together with some interesting mechanics that should lead to a very versatile system. Now I will point out the first time I read the rules, and this is something that I suffer with other games as well, I did struggle to figure out how the pieces of the rules go together. But the game is being updated continuously and the rules are being clarified at each step, but even at the moment it's a pretty well laid out system. As for the models, the Sol Fire team are pretty cool, even if they are in that sphere of the slightly sci-fi soldier that I'm usually not all that excited about. But the Cal War Droids are far more my speed, especially as I don't have anything like them in my collection already. A minor negative point is that the War Droids are a little spindly, which is not actually that uncommon. Many models these days are less than robust, so don't go dropping them off of your gaming table. The whole setting in terms of lore and story is so clearly a passion project, and even as I make this video, more is being written, and not just by myself, for both lore and the rules, and there are more models on the way as well. There are many times when something new comes up and the polite response is to say that it has a long way to go. Well, for me, the Remnant Chronicles is well on its way. And so if you want to check it out, and anything related to the game, check the links in the description, the miniature releases and the rules. And remember to tell them that I sent you. And oh, did I mention The rules themselves, the kind of core rulebook with all of the lore, that is a free download PDF. So you can just go and download that and have a look and peruse to your heart's content before deciding if you want any of the models to go with them. And I need to sneak away and find someone to lend this game with so we can properly get a few rounds in. For now, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.